What is going on, everybody? This is Mike from the C6 Corvette. So, over the weekend, I received a comment which reminded me to do a video anyway on this topic. So, about 3 years ago, I did a fuel pump conversion and also fuel system upgrade on my personal C6 that you guys see on this channel. Now, I made a bunch of videos. They are out there from A to Z, prep parts, uninstall, reinstall, and somewhat of a recap in between. I think they're pretty decent. But the latest comment was, can't you just cut a hole somewhere in the trunk area to remove the fuel pump? Well, I'm going to tell you this. Cutting a hole, access hole to remove a fuel pump module, regardless if you're cutting the driver's side or the passenger side, because C6s do have two tanks with a crossover pipe in the middle, and within that crossover pipe you have return lines, would not be ideal, specifically if you have a nice C6 Corvette. I mean, it's a pretty bad idea to start chopping things and cutting holes, and this would have to be a large opening, large access hole that would actually start right behind the driver's seat and then carry over into the center console area and into the trunk. So you would be removing a lot of material to possibly gain access to the fuel pump module itself. So, in other words, you have infrastructure, you have evap lines, you have other electrical components that run above the fuel tank. And how do I know? I had it apart. So cutting into your vehicle is, I wouldn't recommend it. Like I said, specifically if you have a nice version, you have a nice Corvette, nice clean, something that you like and you enjoy. Now, I've seen a little, we'll say, workaround on a few C6s at car meets, specifically on Woodward here in Michigan, and that is a fuel cell. So I've seen Corvettes with a fuel cell in the trunk area. And with the fuel cell, you can obviously clearly bypass the entire fuel tank setup, the return lines, crossover pipes, all that stuff, right? But the problem lies in the fuel capacity. So if you're looking to just race and you're chopping up the vehicle anyway, that's different. And you would be technically required to run a fuel cell if you were in a certain class or running a certain mile per hour. But if you were using it to daily, it wouldn't be ideal, specifically if you're looking to go on longer trips. It's just a lot of stop and go. Refilling your fuel cell that's located inside the vehicle becomes a sticky subject altogether. But it is an option. Now, when it comes to the actual issue that most C6 Corvettes will kind of come across, especially as they get older, is the high pressure elbow coming out of the fuel pump module on the driver's side develops a crack. And once the crack is there, it's an external crack, it starts spewing fuel basically all over the inner cavity, which is, like I said, right behind your driver's seat. And then eventually the fuel leak becomes large enough to where you'll start to pull fuel, and as the vehicle is running, the fuel will actually leak down the side of the tank. It's a fire hazard because, above the tank you have harnesses, evap lines, below the tank you have your exhaust, and that's not good. And of course, what really makes things go boom is, obviously a raw fuel leak, but also the fumes, right? And anytime somebody tells me that they're smelling raw gas or fuel odor inside the cabin, around the driver's side rear quarter panel, and specifically right around the fill neck, right where the gas cap is, yeah, it's the high pressure elbow. If it was evap related, if it was, let's say, gas cap related, you would set off codes, you would set off emission codes on your vehicle. When it comes to the fuel leak, it's so small and you're still building enough pressure for your vehicle to drive normal without, major drivability issues. So it's not really going to sense for, say, a check engine condition. And another thing too to mention is there's no fuel pressure sensor on C6s. There's a Schrader valve that you can connect a gauge to, but it doesn't really measure pressure unless you install a aftermarket gauge and sensor basically within your fuel system. So another subject obviously is the warranty, or we'll say the recall that was out. All of C6s as they currently sit are out of this warranty. So the warranty was capped at either 10 years or 100,000 miles, whichever came first. And the last C6 that was produced was in 2013. So that puts all of the C6 Gen Corvettes out of this warranty, or it was basically a recall that was capped back in the day. The issues with fuel pumps started in 06, 07, and they were forced to do this basically extended recall, but they capped it, and they knew what they were doing, because the labor, and that's how I'm going to close this out, the labor is very intense. It's also very expensive. Dealerships, high performance shops that specialize in Corvettes, they'll remove the entire rear cradle. So it's your suspension, wheels, diff, transmission, torque tube, all comes out as one piece to gain access to the tanks. Of course, myself and others have proven that you can do this without removing the cradle. 4-speed automatics, 6-speed automatics, and of course M6 manuals, right? But yes, it's very labor intensive. And to give you guys somewhat of a ballpark number, aftermarket performance shops, $2,000 to $2,500 when it comes to labor. If you look at dealerships, $3,000 to $3,500, and your parts will run right around $700 to $800. That's what I paid. I paid like under $800 by the time everything was basically completed, right? So that's the fuel pump, O-rings, gasket seals, stuff like that, harnesses. Now, the other person that is kind of going through the motions, and same thing, fuel issues on the C6, did a whole write-up on one of my videos in the comment section. And I'm going to say this: if you're in position where you do have a external fuel leak, or you suspect external leak, get it fixed. You definitely don't want to lose your car, lose your house, or possibly even lose your life, God forbid. Get it done. Don't drive it. Like I said, it's one of those things where if you have the time, the tools, the basic knowledge, it's doable. Or you can just take it to a shop. Like I said, warranties are out of the question at this point, unless you have some kind of extended aftermarket warranty. As far as evap lines or anything like that, even if you had an evap line that was acting up, it would still require, unfortunately, for you to drop the tank. That's just the nature of the beast on these C6s. And yeah, it's not ideal. Now, one last thing for the person that asked pretty much all the right questions about this C6 fuel pump. My harness didn't just go bad. My harness started to basically melt away or separate because of the external fuel leak caused by the elbow. That caused all of the seals in the pinouts to basically disintegrate and start to backfeed fuel through the harness. So that was a little bit different. That was kind of work in progress there as this fuel pump was leaking. But in my case, I had this project penciled in way before I found out I had a leak. I literally found out I had a leak, external leak, the last few times I drove the vehicle. Prior to that, I had no symptoms. I had no external leaks, visible leaks, or I didn't smell raw fuel until the weather turned, and the last few times I drove the vehicle, actually before starting this whole performance, we'll say, upgrade, that's when I noticed and started smelling fuel all over the place. So it was due. But at the end of the day, Target tops, LS2, LS3s, convertibles, 427 convertibles, U06s, Grand Sports, they will all experience the same fail mode eventually, either on stock pumps or even pumps that have been replaced years prior. nature of the beast. They went through, when I say they, GM went through various revisions throughout the C6 life cycle, and the only one that's not really affected is the ZR1, at least at this point. ZR1s obviously came supercharged from GM, so yes, they have similar tanks, crossover pipe, but overall fuel system is way different in how it's controlled because it is supercharged. So get out there, just basically make a decision if you're going to do it yourself or have somebody else do it. But either way you cut it, it's either time, which equals money, or it's paying for labor and parts, which is also very expensive. One of the reasons I did it myself. Good luck, and talk to you guys later. And of course, if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me.